I said it before and I'll say it again.
That scene, that last scene.
What does it mean?
I'm the dude, you know?
Get the fuck out of here. No, I cannot.
That final scene
Starts now.
Hello and welcome to That Final Scene, the podcast where we dissect the most memorable endings in cinema history. I'm your host, Sophie, and joining me as always are my co-hosts, Ben and Simon. How are you guys doing today?
Good. It's too hot. It's too damn hot.
I think I'm so energized that the theme tune felt really sluggish and slow, but it's just because I'm really intense today.
I was saying to someone that we were recording doing a Heat episode, and they were like, "Why are you doing a Heat episode?" And I was like, "Well, because we've talked about it a couple of times before, and also it's just so fucking hot right now."
Wait, is there a movie called Cool?
Cool Runnings.
Oh,
we should do. I mean, there's not much to talk about the ending of Cool Runnings.
Massive chord.
Yeah, it's such a great movie, though. Oh God.
I feel like this is turning into a Steven Seagal podcast. So funny. That's
Listen,
okay.
I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that.
Well, I feel like we have a TBT nostalgia moment to go through because before we just started recording, Ben, you brought up the iconic
Xena Warrior Princess.
Yes.
Yeah. Which Simon had never heard of.
I can't believe you have never heard of
It's
Xena.
because
I would have been about 10.
Yeah, and I'm like, what, 6 years younger than you, so I would have been 4, and yet I know Xena.
See, it was a dream.
That means you watched it late.
I was probably watching, I remember it used to be on after school, so I'd come home from school at like 2 or 3 o'clock.
It was for kids then?
It wasn't for
it's
kids.
live action though, it's not a cartoon.
Remember when like Sky One used to have like Stargate
I never had
SG?
Sky, Ben.
Ah, well, there you go. See,
I wasn't a Sky child.
No, well, I was
The
a Sky
privilege.
child. But like, just
Dripping with privilege.
Yeah, that dripping privilege of having Sky One. Having 4 channels instead of 3, my God.
The minute I left home, my mum and dad got everything. Like, so annoying.
But I was so surprised, because I thought it would be like your level of cheese. It's just
I think
such
you
a
would
ridiculous
love
program.
it. Like there's
Well,
just
even
so much
now.
to appreciate. It's a feminist, TV show when you
Feminist
think
piece of
about
work,
it.
yeah.
What was her like whatever? Your friend?
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle.
The description of the show is fantastic. I mean, it's Xena, a mighty warrior princess with a dark past, sets out to redeem herself. She's joined by small-town bard Gabrielle. Together, they journey the ancient world and fight the greater good against ruthless warlords and gods. I mean, who doesn't want to watch
Do you
that
know
fucking
what?
TV
That
show?
reminds me of my favourite TV show when I was a kid, and it's called Maid Marian. Do you ever remember that?
Is that like a Robin Hood spin-off or something?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But the protagonist is like Maid Marian, this girl character, and she is like a kind of...
Oh wow.
She's a
She's a
badass.
feminist hero, actually.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because they used to let the kids sing along to the theme tune as it faded in.
Why do I have a feeling there was a musical episode or something dumb like that?
Well,
Yeah.
every show, like Buffy had a musical episode. Like
Yeah.
I'd say, I think a lot of shows back then had like a musical episode.
Ben, I bet
Yeah.
you loved Buffy.
No, do you know what? Weirdly, people have said to me that I should go back and watch Buffy because it's really good. But I've never. It was like I remember my aunt used to watch Buffy all the time. And I think it was just a bit too, like, when I was like 4 or 5 and it was on TV, so it was a bit too old for me. But I feel like if I went back and watched it now, I'd appreciate the like 90s nostalgia of kind of shitty CGI and
Like
all the stuff in
Firefly.
it. Oh God, Firefly
So
was so
I don't know
good.
what that is.
Oh well.
Firefly is like the guy who created Buffy. It's like him doing like a space sci-fi TV show.
Very
Only got
cool.
1 season,
Yeah.
and it became like a cult show that everybody went crazy that they cancelled it. But yeah, there's loads of TV shows that make jokes about it being like in Community they make a joke. It's like if one of us dies, we're going to stage it like a suicide for the unjust cancellation of Firefly. And it's just like, people are really intense about
Well, they
Firefly.
even liked it even after they made a movie out of it.
Yeah, it
That
has
was
a
still-
huge
yeah,
fandom.
yeah, it has a huge fan
fandom.
base. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the movie was basically just an extended version of the pilot. They basically reshot the pilot, extended it a little bit to give everybody an ending rather than the pilot finishing and them going into a series. But yeah, would recommend watching Firefly if you want some like good. It's really like well written sci-fi. It's quite good.
Also, happy Pride Month because I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that Xena and Gabriel got it. 1,000% they were a thing.
Okay.
1,000%, you could tell.
Who doesn't love a small town bard? You know?
They were a dreamy couple, to be fair. Ben, I know you told us before we started recording that you've been watching a ton of films.
Yeah, I've been
So
watching
give
a
us
ton
the
of
highlights.
stuff. Yeah, so Ellie was away over the weekend, so I basically spent the whole weekend either watching sports or watching movies.
Love that.
And so I watched Creed 3 because that's on Prime now.
You'd seen Creed 2 already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd seen 1 and 2. Thought it was okay. It's all right. As somebody who works for a company that shows boxing, it kind of glamorizes boxing in a way that it's not as maybe as interesting as Creed makes it out to be. But
how does it stack up to the other two?
Better than the second one. I don't know if it was as good as the first one. I think the first one was quite like a good kind of. I like the fact that they're moving away from, like, I'm sure Sylvester Stallone was pissed about it, but like they're moving away from Rocky to make it its kind of its own thing. So like I think Sylvester Stallone was in the second one,
Yeah,
and in the second one he's fighting like Drago's protege from Rocky 4, whereas this one they're kind of trying to get away from it a little bit more, and I thought it was good. Then I had like a Kevin Smith mini marathon where I watched Dogma and then Red State.
Damn.
Dogma with Alanis Morissette.
Yes, Dogma with Alanis Morissette as God.
yes.
Yeah. So Ellie, I love Dogma. Like it is one of my favorite films.
Really?
But
Okay.
I used to try and it's so hard to find online. And for ages I was looking for it. And then Ellie just found it on the website at the DVD and just bought it for me. And she bought it ages ago. And I've been kind of sitting, kind of waiting to be like, oh God, when do I watch it? When do I watch it? And I watched it over the weekend. It's
What is it
fucking
about?
brilliant.
I've never heard of it.
So it's about it's Matt Damon and Ben Affleck
Love it.
play Matt Damon is Loki, the god of death, and Ben Affleck is like another kind of angel, and they basically have been banished from heaven and they're trying to make their way back in. And Alan Rickman, who is another angel, comes and basically says to Jesus's like long distant relative that you need to go and stop them, and she's helped along the way by Jay and Silent Bob from the Clerks movies and Chris Rock, who plays the 13th apostle called Rufus. And
Genius.
That
it's
sounds
fucking
hilarious.
brilliant. There's
How
like
is it not
Jason Lee's in
online?
it, Salma Hayek's also in it.
What?
What's your Carlin Josh? What's his name? Oh my God, the really famous American comedian. And it's amazing. Like I think it's my favorite Kevin Smith film. Like I really like Kevin Smith, and it's probably my favorite film of his. It's just so ridiculous and so funny. And
Oh
yeah,
man,
I
shame
would-
it's not online. Like I'm
I
surprised with
will.
all
I
these
will
names.
loan you the DVD to watch it if you would like. Yeah, it's so
please.
Have a
fucking
DVD
good.
player.
No,
It's
I'll figure it out.
and it's like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are brilliant in it together. Like they are so good as like a little kind of like.
That was pretty early on in their partnership, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're really young. I mean, it's like 95, 96, because Ben Affleck had been in a couple of other Kevin Smith movies. Like he'd been in Mallrats and stuff. So I think then they got him from that, and then the two of them just. I don't know if it was before or after Good Will Hunting. It's probably around the same time, maybe a little bit after. And then obviously the two of them just went huge, but would recommend that. And yeah, then I watched Red State, which is his kind of like horror movie, which is quite interesting. It's like the Louis Theroux documentary on the the most hated family in America. So basically, this is kind of a horror movie with that kind of take on it. And it's again, it's really weird, but it's really good. And then I watched Heat and all of Blackadder. As I said to Simon before.
Wow.
Not all of Blackadder. I didn't watch season 1. I watched seasons 2, 3, and 4 because they are the best ones. And I didn't watch the Christmas special, the one where he goes back in time.
Yeah.
I
Did
didn't
you?
watch
Were
that one.
you still moved by the final episode of this?
Oh, the final.
First World War.
Talking of final scenes, and actually, we should probably do the end of Blackadder as a final scene at some point.
My God, it's amazing.
It's incredible. It's so for a comedy series that's really irreverent and kind of like tries to laugh away anything, like laugh in the face of really serious things. Like the whole 4th season is set during the First World War and in the trenches.
Yeah.
And it's like really awful, but it's about like the plucky nature and like laughing through everything and kind of really cynical humor.
It's a testament to how emotionally like involved you get with it, because it's basically like watching Amdram, but
Yeah.
it's so moving.
The sets for it are so small because it was all done on like small sound stages. The sets are really tiny, especially the 4th season. It's like it's really cramped in. They're in these tiny little they're in the trenches and it's really closed in. And I've listened to them talk about filming the final episode, and what they said about it was they filmed it once and they were kind of like, I don't think any of us have like the emotional or the physical energy to try and do that again. And they were just like, let's just leave it. Let's just leave it at that. And then it's
Yeah, they did one take of going over the top, and then someone came up with the poppies.
the poppy
idea.
field.
Yeah. And that was
it just fades into this. The poppy fields in France or in Belgium, and it's oh God. It's
How would you
fantastic.
pitch it to our listeners?
Blackadder.
Yeah.
I think Blackadder is the quintessential British comedy. I think if you want British TV comedy, and I would go and watch that because it's it's some of the funniest people in British comedy at their beginning as well. So like you see Rowan Atkinson, Hugh Laurie, Stephen Fry, Ben Elton, Richard Curtis, when they were all really young.
Ben Elton and Richard Curtis are both massive history buffs, and
Yeah.
a lot of the history in there is very, very accurate. Even though it's very funny and silly, a lot of it's really clever.
Yeah, and it's also like it's short, like it's 6 episodes a season, so it's really like easy to watch and digest.
Cool. Well, speaking of shows that I've rewatched 1,000 times, but I'm not sure I'm going to anymore because I don't like the new seasons. Is Black Mirror, so I caught up on the latest season.
Okay.
5 episodes.
Are they? How long are the episodes?
It varies. So the third one, which is the best one, with Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's the longest one. It's
Okay.
like an hour and a half almost, but it's great. It feels like a proper movie.
Yeah, I heard that one was good, and the one with the girl from Schitt's Creek is supposed to be good as well.
Yeah, So the third one was like Beyond the Sea. It was the best, and it was like a very Black Mirror sci-fi, like astronauts, like just like very interesting story, and it really played with tech. And yeah, I don't want to say too much, but that was great. The first one, Joan is Awful, that was with Annie Murphy and Salma Hayek.
Annie Murphy, that's her name. Yes,
Annie
Sorry,
Murphy.
I couldn't remember.
It was Black Mirror-y. I thought it was interesting. It wasn't like the best Black Mirror episode, but I was like, okay, it fits the mold. The other 3 are not Black Mirror episodes. I don't know what happened to Charlie Brooker. Like, he went all in on horror, so I don't know if you're gonna like that, Ben, because it's just...
Yeah, I'm not really a horror guy, but
It's not even horror and tech. It's just horror. It's like...
like slasher movies.
Yeah, what's the guy? I'm blanking. Who did The Evil Dead?
Sam Raimi.
Yeah, it's like, it's it's his kind of show,
Yeah.
which is strange. So the second one is about explores true crime, right? The fifth one is about something supernatural, and the sixth one is about again something like supernatural and retro.
That was I don't know if you've seen the movie. Have you seen the movie Sunshine, the Danny Boyle film?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they're trapped on the spaceship.
Trapped on the spaceship going towards the sun. That was my biggest problem with that movie, was that it was this really interesting sci-fi story for like an hour and a half, and then the last 30 minutes it becomes like a horror slasher movie, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, so the tech angle is gone, which is surprising because I thought that's what Black
was
Mirror
normally
was
what he
all
leaned
about.
into, yeah.
Like Black Mirror, like our TV or camera, so among those lines, anything that it's a black screen essentially. But yeah, if I could boil it down to like what's the theme of the season, it's more about like horrible people doing horrible things. Like it just
There's so many TV shows like that.
Yeah,
right now.
it does speak what you can do for the sake of like spectacle, like vanity or like things like that. I mean, yeah, give it a go. I know, Simon, you haven't watched it in a while. You haven't seen the newer seasons.
Not for a few years.
Yeah, I think it just didn't. It never felt the same.
I didn't
after
realize that it was
to
going to rinse
Netflix.
out loads of episodes of it. I thought it was just going to be a very small run, and that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean that was the BBC vision, I'm sure. And
To
then,
be honest, I haven't really dedicated time to it since like season 2, maybe. Like I don't think, or maybe since it went to Netflix, I've never really sat down and watched.
did you see the
a season
interactive
throughout.
the interactive
Bandersnatch.
episode?
Yeah, I didn't.
Even that wasn't great.
I got it was just too much of a gimmick for
Yeah.
me. Like I understand why it's a nice idea and that Netflix gives you the ability to do that, but I just thought it was just a bit too gimmicky for me.
Yeah.
Like I think for me it will never be as good as like that second season, like, you know, where it's the woman and she's trying to escape the village and she can't work out why, and then it turns out she's committed this like horrendous crime. Like I can't remember what the episode is called, but it never gets better than that. And that first season as well, because it was so different to everything that was on like I still remember talking to people about that at the time and everybody being like, oh my, like have you like
Was that the one with
the prime minister and the pig and that
with
season
something
and,
the nations that I can't remember the exact title.
yeah, and then there was like the Donald Gleason episode where he's dead or his girlfriend's dead, and like there's the hologram and stuff like that, and it was just amazing. And it was so
White Christmas with John Hamm, incredible. Like San Junipero, incredible episode. Yeah, I mean, just amazing. So yeah, do watch Beyond the Sea, the third one. I think you're really gonna like it.
As
then.
like watch it as a standalone.
Sci-fi standalone. Yeah, you're really going to. And Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett, they're
I have a
incredible.
4-hour train journey ahead of me tomorrow, so maybe I'll watch it.
Start with that, and maybe the second. Yeah, give them a go. 4 and 5 are meh.
Okay.
Yeah. Simon, what's your highlight from last
Well,
week?
I was going to cancel my Now TV subscription post Succession.
Oops.
Fair.
But then I had a little bit of a look at Barry.
Good. I thought you
yes.
Nice. I thought you were going to say the Idol.
Oh, yeah.
The what?
I feel
The
like I need to
Idol.
watch like an episode
The
or two
Idol.
of that to form an
The
opinion
Idol.
of it.
I mean, Ben was talking about it in
This
the
is
last
the one I was
episode.
talking about a couple of
The
weeks back.
Weeknd?
The Weekend TV show that's about like
Oh,
an expose of the music industry.
Yeah, it's supposed to
is
be
it any
awful.
good?
No, it's
No,
supposed to be
it's
awful.
dreadful. The acting
Yeah.
in it. Just watch some of the clips online of some of the acting in it, and you'll
It's
understand.
horrible acting
Yeah.
and writing. Let's
It's
go
really
back to
bad.
Barry.
But go back to good acting and good
Yeah.
writing.
it's cool because he's obviously suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from Afghanistan.
From the war, yeah.
And so therefore you give him license to do what he's doing, which is pretty shocking.
How far into it are you?
I've watched one season.
Okay,
the first
nice.
series.
Yeah, at the end of that first season, my God, I really didn't expect that.
It's quite mad and dark, but also quite poignant at times.
I think Bill Hader is
Phenomenal.
who plays Barry and like writes the show is he underrated? Maybe people will say to me, "Oh, Bill Hader's not underrated," but I think as he's just a comedy genius. Like the guy is so clever. If you watch any of his stuff on SNL, like obviously I know there was a lot of them writing at the time, but like his performances on SNL were just amazing. He's so funny.
It's kind of like he's playing someone on the spectrum a bit in
Yeah.
Barry, isn't he? He's quite sort of awkward.
I would
Yeah.
urge you to go and watch his impressions videos on YouTube
Oh, yeah.
because his impressions are
So
incredible.
funny.
He's so good. And actually, considering we're doing Heat, he does an amazing Al Pacino. It's so good. He's so funny. Yeah.
I really like the bold guy who's the
the guy who talks like that.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Noho Hank.
No,
Yeah.
Hank.
No, Hank's
no,
amazing.
Hank is brilliant.
Yeah, I
Hi,
hope-
Barry.
Yeah, I hope he gets the Emmy this year because
He's nominated for
he's
Best Supporting Actor.
What's
Yeah.
his name as an actor? What's his real name?
something Cartigan.
I can't remember.
Cartigan. I mean, I don't quote me on
I'm
that,
not
but
sure.
yeah. But yeah, he's incredible.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, so unique as well.
What's this?
It's a movie.
No!
Oh, I liked it.
No!
Can I say something?
No!
I don't get it.
What don't you get about it?
So we asked our listeners a couple of days ago the question: what's one movie you walked out of and why? And I have to
Love
say, this has been our most popular question to date. We've got over 150, maybe 200 comments and counting as of today. I tried to read every single one of them, but I'm sure I missed a few. Some interesting themes for sure. A lot of Fast and Furious,
Yeah.
a lot of Aronofsky, a lot of Avatar mentions.
Yeah.
But many of the movies and the reasons that people kind of, I don't know, like gave up on certain films made sense to me. They were kind of relatable. But I want us to go through as many as we can. So I can start. So our friend, comedian of cinema, never walked out before, but nearly did during Jurassic World Dominion last year. Just awful. I've heard the worst.
Dude, that's
like,
that's not surprising though, is it?
no, you know what? The first Jurassic
When
World
they
was
brought it
actually
back.
good.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first Jurassic
I
World.
enjoyed
I
the
thought it was
first,
good.
yeah. But to mess it up when you bring back the original gang is like.
But
what
I
are
think
you
that's
doing?
exactly-
ancient?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what?
But I think that's the problem, though.
Yeah, that's the
just they
problem.
don't need to. They didn't need to bring back the original gang. They should have just
Yeah.
kept it as they were. Like I think I didn't see it either. But from what I mean in the trailer, they just kept showing like seemed like they were trying to recreate scenes from the original Jurassic Park where Sam Neill would say something and then Chris Pratt would be going to say the same thing.
That
He'd be
was
like,
so
oh my
cringy.
god, it's like we're the same person. Oh,
Yeah, that was so cringy.
come on.
Yeah. What a Feeling, I don't have their name, so What a Feeling says, Miami Vice, Colin Farrell was supposed to steal my heart. What they stole instead was the good money I paid for that movie ticket.
Yeah. Dreadful film. Absolutely dreadful.
Uh,
That was in Colin Farrell's handlebar mustache phase. My
Colin
God.
Farrell.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
good.
He was a Hollywood hunk and not acting very well.
Yadra C, Tree of Life, haven't physically left the theater, but my soul left and she wasn't happy.
What is Tree of Life? I feel like
Oh my God, it's a Terry Gilliam film. So that tells you all you need to
okay.
know. With Brad Pitt and Jessica Chastain, and it's the slowest film. It's a
okay.
kind of like fountain, very meditational.
Yeah.
Let's look at a tree for like 20 minutes sort of film.
Okay.
Poor Terry.
Poor Terry.
He's had a tough time as the director, hasn't he, Terry?
He has. My favourite one is, this is from Zane's Brains. I was 11 when the first Avatar came out, and if I'd paid for my movie ticket, I would have walked out.
have another comment from Ramlumbreras. The first Avatar just wasn't into it, but I mean, I was also on a date and I was 16. So again, it's like Avatar forced you to watch the film just because you were not of age. It's so funny. Angel M2448. I almost walked out of Fast X due to the sheer stupidity of the movie, but I'm part of the problem because I just have to know what happens next, stupid or not. #sorry, not sorry. #family.
Is Angel M2448 going to go to the next 2 movies? Because they have 2 more planned for this.
I think it's his version of Halo. You know, he's going to hate watch it till the end.
You got to do it. Sometimes you just got to stick with it. What can you do?
And another one that I had was kind of funny. Yeah, It's Me, Fools. That's the name. I almost walked out on Lightyear. Did any of you watch that one? Lightyear.
No, the Pixar one.
Chris Evans,
no.
yeah. That movie was so boring and I was just on my phone the whole time. Unfortunately, I paid a good amount of money, so I stayed until it was over. I was the only one in the theater, so I guess I should have taken that as a sign.
Yeah, I think the one I related with the hardest was the B42 Max one, which you actually tagged me in, which is don't ever want to do that. But the one film that made me even consider it was Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I would point out, though, B42 Max, what you should have done is walked out of Last Jedi, and that would have told you don't even need to see Rise of Skywalker, so don't even fucking bother.
We had a few people say The Last Jedi as well.
Dreadful film. Dreadful. I didn't walk out of it, but I wish I had. The premise of the film is the world's slowest car chase, and it's fucking awful. My God. The world's slowest car chase in space.
Does that count as a Star Wars film?
Yeah. It is a Star Wars film, yeah. But the whole, it's, oh God, I wish I'd walked out of it.
Someone's written Fargo.
Really?
What?
Someone said Fargo, yep.
Why?
The critically acclaimed movie with a completely absurd cast of characters was horrid awful.
Oh my God.
We did have a few hot takes. Someone said La La Land. Someone else said
Actually,
Everything
I was
Everywhere
gonna
All
say
at
that
Once.
one. La La Land, I've never got past the singing on the motorway at the beginning.
I'm not.
It's a good
that
opening
doesn't
scene. You
surprise
didn't
me.
like that?
I don't know. I wasn't in the right frame of mind.
Okay. Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a bit...
No,
yeah,
fuck
yeah.
off. No.
I get it. Like I thought when the credits came up halfway through, I was done. I had to sit through another hour of it.
I did like this close to walking out of Babylon, some of the most mind-boggling nonsense I've seen in a while.
It's so divisive. I'm dying to see it.
It's so bad, and it kind of only gets worse as it go on. And you think you've seen everything. Out pops Tobey Maguire in the creepiest role of his life, and you couldn't be less ready. That's from A. Stadell. Thank you, A. Stadell. That's a great
so
comment.
funny.
It's just a bad movie. I guess you could say it does some things well, but it doesn't do any of them right. A movie with a POV shot of getting shit on your head by an elephant, a sex worker getting peed on, and then ODing 2 minutes later. Margot Robbie being bitten by a snake, cutting its head off and sucking out the venom, then making out with her savior, eating a bunch of nasty looking stuff, then projectile vomiting on the party host, all to be crowned by some hardcore rat eating fetish performance. None of these things are even really relevant to the movie, and yet that's what remains imprinted in your mind.
We need to hire this guy.
Yeah, fucking hell. This guy should be writing letterbox
quality
reviews.
review.
That's a brilliant review. My God.
Filthy Vampires has nearly walked out of Alien Covenant. Dreadful film. But the room was pretty packed, so I was embarrassed to leave. Would have been less packed, I would have run the fuck out. I want to normalize walking out of the theater if it's not serving you. Like, why have a terrible time until the very end?
Now, here's one that I think this hits home for me, this comment. Oops. Because I specifically remember the bit in the film that they're talking about when they say this. So Trevor Copter says, I would have walked out of Watchmen, but my friend was my ride. That movie remains my least favorite superhero movie. Then stuff about Zack Snyder. And then he says he glorifies everything. The original story dismantles, and it truly baffles me how so many brilliant people think the film is brilliant. And then there's Hallelujah. And the Hallelujah scene in that film
horrible.
is so uncomfortably awful.
Cringy.
It's a sex scene with Hallelujah playing in the background. And it's just oh my God.
So cringy.
It's like a dystopian superhero movie, but it's shite. It's really bad. There's a much better TV show, actually.
Yeah.
But the guy who
The
wrote
graphic
Laws.
novel is great, but I mean, Zack Snyder just ruined that. But
Inherent Vice. Someone didn't like Inherent Vice. Interesting.
it's a polarizing film. It's not for everyone.
Don't Worry, Darling, someone says. Mm-hmm. It's a mediocre story with little depth, loose ends, and strange choices. Well, listen to our episode and you will find out that I felt the exact same way.
We'll link it to it in our show notes.
The film has potential but doesn't live up to it. And after watching, I was really worried. darling.
I mean, I love all the answers because it kind of like they show how funny our listeners are and like how I don't know. And I also love how they're talking to each other. It's like a playground right now in the comment section.
Yeah,
so cool. Any other highlights, Simon, that stood out to you?
Someone said Hateful Eight. Too much talking.
Hateful. Do you know what? Hateful Eight.
I hate those films with loads of talking.
Hateful Eight was too long. That was my problem with it.
Too long. It's fair. Too much talking. Yeah. Not much action.
This is Stephen. The only movie I ever walked out on is Regarding Henry. Have you guys seen that?
I haven't heard of it.
And I've seen a lot of bad movies, but Harrison needed to pass on this one. Is that Harrison Ford film?
Ford? Maybe?
I don't know.
I guess
Maybe.
so.
I don't know.
It sounds like a Harrison Ford movie.
Someone
weirdly.
mentioned a Sandra Bullock movie, and it's not the
About Eve?
All About Steve. But the Sandra Bullock movie I wish I'd walked out of was The Blind Side. Luckily, I didn't have to, because when I went to see it in the cinema, the reel exploded in the camera, so the whole screen went basically it looked like lava, and we had to leave.
What?
Yeah, I was really glad because that movie was so fucking dreadful.
Yeah,
I still maintain that Sandra Bullock has to give the Oscar back for that. She did not deserve it, but what can you do?
Friggs81 says, Act of Valor, a movie with real Navy SEALs acting? Why? I thought it would be so good. I don't know. It took about 10 minutes before I realised it wasn't a documentary.
That is so funny.
Oh God, why did Newman is an island? Cloud Atlas, I left for 10 minutes out of extreme boredom, then psyched myself up to go back and sit through the end.
Listen, I feel that one.
Yeah, I've heard Cloud Atlas is dread.
It's
That's the Tom
difficult.
Hanks movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a bad film. It's a difficult film. It's like It's like The Fountain, which again, we've had a few people say The Fountain Mother, like our top bottom Aronofsky feels like very difficult, and I don't want to call them dreadful, but they're just difficult, and they're not for everyone.
Have either of you walked out of anything?
Yeah, I think I've said before, A Silence, the Scorsese film. I don't think it was a bad film. I just thought it was very slow, and it had a sort of like meditative look on Jesus Christ, and I'm like, I can't watch a 3-hour movie about monks. Like, that's not my vibe right now.
Fair.
But yeah, probably. Yeah, I know Comedian of Cinema, like Tim really loves that film, so I guess it's good, but just not for me.
Yeah,
a lot of the time you got to be in the right mood, haven't you? It's like music.
have to.
It's like if someone sends you their favourite track and they make you listen to it because they love it so much, and you're like, I'm not in the mood. You can't suddenly like snap into enjoying it.
And you have from...
Yeah, me and my friend Dardo walked out of Horrible Bosses too, because
Iconic.
It's a comedy movie that is completely devoid of laughter in any way, shape, or form.
Was it a mutual? Was it a group decision?
Yeah. I think at one point we were just like, we just go. They're like, we just leave, and we just got up and left. I think we were the only people in the cinema as well, so that helped. If we'd been like in like a packed row, maybe it would have been slightly difficult to be like, sorry, excuse me, sorry. But I think the fact that we were there on our own, we were just like, this is.
That makes it so easy. Yeah.
And it was just so unfunny. It was disappointing because the first Horrible Bosses is all right. It's not too bad. You know, some laughs in it, and assumed there would be laughs in the second one. But there's not. It's not funny. Don't worry. Don't see it. It's not good.
Wouldn't. Never.
Noted.
Probably. Cool. So thank you all for sharing your response with us. If you want to join in on the conversation in our next episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram, That Final Scene, and look out for our next question. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with Hit.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hey, yo, what's up? Y'all got a problem? Y'all want some of this?
Without much further ado,
Here we go again.
Let's do it.
And we're back. We're back with the iconic film with the most... I like to think it's one of the most iconic shots of all time, the final shots of all time. That is Heat, the 1995. Is that correct? Am I making it up?
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Directed by Michael Mann, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Amy Brenneman. I'm not prepared.
Amy
Brenneman.
Yeah, I love her. She's so good in this film. Okay,
Tom Sizemore, John Voight.
Ooh, yes.
It's a huge cast. Ashley Judd. Danny Trejo's in it as well. William Fichtner. Natalie Portman's randomly in it as well. I completely forgot that she's in it.
Yeah, I forgot about her side story, which was tragic. Side note and random fun fact: the guy who plays Waingro, Kevin,
yes,
what's his face? He
who looks like Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
well, he did jail time a few years later.
Oh, really?
I just didn't have time to look it up, like what for.
He has that glint in his eye.
Well, he does. And the funny part is he did jail time for 2 years and his nickname was Waingro in prison.
Well, of course it was.
He's a terrifying character in that film.
Terrifying. He's terrifying.
He's really scary.
He's brilliant.
Okay, so to set up the plot real quick, Hit is a crime thriller that follows the story of a group of professional bank robbers led by Neil Macaulay. Is that what? Yeah. Played by Robert De Niro.
Neil. Fine.
Neil.
Yeah.
And the dedicated LAPD detective Vincent Hanna, portrayed by Al Pacino. The movie follows their parallel lives as they plan and execute a series of heists while also dealing with their personal relationships and problems. The movie is famous for its realistic depiction of crime and police work, as well as its epic shootout scene in downtown LA. It also features the first on-screen meeting of Pacino and De Niro, who had previously starred in Godfather Part 2, but never shared this scene together. I hadn't realized that, but it's true. Cool. So, before getting into the final scene, how do we feel about this film? I know, Simon, you have seen it a few times. Does it change? Like, does your perception change?
No, it never gets old. I try and ration how often I watch it. It's a bit like Home Alone in that respect. I don't want to spoil it.
I mean, what do you mean? We are spoiler territory.
Well, if I watch
oh,
too
sorry.
much...
Watch it, if you watch it
I thought you meant literally. Oh,
No.
so I see.
Also, what's interesting is the set design hasn't really dated too badly. Because you know the way Vincent is in this really trendy
minimalist apartment.
And I remember when I first saw it when I was probably a kid, I thought that was cool. And now I still think it's cool. I don't know if that's because I haven't moved on.
I mean, it's the kind of, it's interesting because the kind of person that doesn't get attached to many things, just like a nomad in a way. Not digital nomad, but more like a nomad of his own life. So I get that aesthetic. It's beautiful.
But that's because of who his partner is, isn't it? The reason why the flat's like that.
Well, he doesn't have a partner. Neil doesn't have a partner.
I'm talking. Didn't I say Vincent?
No, Vincent.
No, you said. Oh, I thought you said Neil. Sorry.
No,
Vincent.
Sorry,
Vincent.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because Vincent's with his new partner, and she's got this amazing
his wife.
apartment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ben, what do you think of
I
the?
love
Yeah,
it. It's so good. It's just, it's like, it's the perfect amount of over the top. It's really good action scenes with two brilliant performances from Pacino and De Niro, but like also just a little bit mad at the same time. Like when Pacino just like, there's a couple of scenes in the movie where he just goes mad, and it's like, it's so erratic and so weird, like, but it's brilliant. It's just so good. And Val Kilmer's great in it.
Yeah,
like I really
He's
understand.
very
Like having watched, like I haven't seen it in ages.
He's such a lovable bank robber.
Yeah, he is. But actually, and knowing now that like when they had planned a sequel that it was going to be around Val Kilmer's character, you can see why. Like you kind of want to know
because
what
he drives
happens
off,
to Chris,
doesn't he?
He drives off. Yeah, it's so good.
I like the way it's stitched together with quite a lot of depth. So you get these moments of extreme action, but then you actually learn quite a bit of the backstory of the different characters. And those scenes are done with this really kind of serene drone-like soundtrack that's quite calm. And it's kind of as cool as that flat and as cool as the shots of LA look. And it's really stylish. Like I really enjoyed the visual feast of it.
Yeah, the music is just incredible, even though it doesn't have a traditional like score.
It's kind of like waves. It's just pulsing underneath all the time.
Like a drone,
It's like a sort of little heartbeat going on. It's really effective.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can get past that diner scene either. I mean, that is just... the two of them face to face is
what do you think
good.
so in the lead up to that scene when Neil gets pulled over on the motorway, why does he agree to do it? Because he doesn't have to. Like, what's the rationale behind that happening?
What's the rationale of Neil going with
so
him?
Vincent takes a massive risk. He chases him down the motorway, pulls him over because he's got the power of arrest. He's a policeman. He has to pull over. And he invites him for this meetup.
Yeah, because the power is kind of in both of their hands, though, because Neil also knows he has the power to pull me over, but he doesn't have the power to arrest me right now.
Yeah,
because
he has nothing. He has nothing on him.
That's the whole.
Yeah.
That's why, like,
It's
Neil
a
has
power
such
play.
a confidence around it, because he can sit there with him, and then he knows that he's pulling him away from.
But do you think it's a moment of weakness for Neil, because really he shouldn't be giving Vincent anything? Like, is it Neil kind of just his interest getting the better of him and wanting to know the man behind the mask.
No, I don't think so, because I don't think Neil is ever, like, his whole thing throughout the film is that he's not really in it for the thrill, like really for the thrill of it, I don't think. And the only time he lets emotion get the better of him is at the end of the film.
So is it more like Neil just saying, can you just let this slide? Like, I'm just a normal guy just trying to live my dream. I think I don't even want to do this for very long.
Do you know what? I think it's more so it's a very old fashioned, it's a respect thing. In a, like, I'm the cop, you're the robber, we can sit down, and they sit down face to face and they have this conversation. Because that's the whole point of the conversation is that it's just two people who say to one another, well, if it was, Sheena says, you know, if it comes between you and some woman who you want to make a widow, I know who I'm going to choose. And then De Niro says the same thing, you know, if it comes between me, you know, you and me getting away, I know who I choose. I think
that sets up the final scene incredibly well. And quite early on in the film as well. It's quite a long film. It's long. Every time I watch it, I'm more surprised.
Yeah, it's about 2:45.
Definitely earns its length, that film.
Yeah, it doesn't feel laboured at any point, because it kind of like interjects with really good kind of, because the bank robbery in LA, the main bank robbery scene is probably after about like an hour and 45, 2 hours. You still have almost an hour to go in the film after that's happened. Whereas normally that would be like the set piece that kind of ends the film and then they get chased down. But actually, there's a lot more then still to go.
The scene that always pops up in my head when I think of Heat is the attempted suicide of Vincent's stepdaughter. And I think that's just a testament to like how the kind of the tangential side stories are amazing, and like the conversation Vincent has with his new partner, with the mother of that girl, like in the hospital, is really deep, and it's amazing.
Going back to that diner scene, I do think there's a lot of foreshadowing there in terms of what's going to happen in the end, because you mentioned that Neil a bit weak for sitting down with Vincent, but at the same time, if you remember, Vincent also opens up and talks about his flaws and how he basically has no life and he has fucked up everything and he has nothing left to lose because he's going to take him down no matter what. And in response to that, if you remember, Neil goes, I'm not going to go back no matter what, referring to prison. And then, we can talk about the final scene. The final line of the film is actually a callback to what he told him in the diner. So let's jump to the final scene, which is essentially a culmination of the cat and mouse game between Neil and Vincent. Does anyone want to set up the failed bank robbery thing, what happens there? Because I think this is what kind of sets up the final scene, like what went wrong there, who died.
There's kind of a big chain of events to kind of get to it, isn't there? Because Waingro goes to Danny Trejo's character, who we see him before the bank robbery, and he's the driver, tells Neil, I can't make it, I'm being followed. Then Neil goes to find him after everything goes wrong, because the police show up a little bit before they probably should have. And he then goes to find him. He's almost dead. It was Waingro who did it. And then it all kind of leads back to the original person that was robbed at the start of the film, that they robbed the bank and tried to trade the money back to them. And then that leads to the death of Tom Sizemore's character dies during the bank robbery. Val Kilmer gets shot, but he's not killed. The driver dies as well.
Yeah, it spills out into the street. Yeah. It's very, very messy.
Yeah, a lot of the police are killed in it. A couple of them are shot.
Amazing sound design in that big gun battle.
It's so loud. My God, it's incredible. Jesus.
And then eventually, on the way, Neil goes and wastes Waingro.
Yeah, so like John Voight, who's kind of is like the fixer character for them, has finally gotten Neil his out. He has to go to the airport, and on the way there, he's supposed to be getting away, running away from it, and
And there's that very poignant scene where Neil's girlfriend is waiting in the car outside Waingro's hotel, and Neil's about to get into it, and as he's going to get into the car, the police come towards him.
He sees Vincent,
Neil just looks away from his girlfriend and walks away, and that's
because that's the thing, isn't it? What is it? His I think he says it twice in the film. His maxim is never have anything in your life that when the heat shows up, you can't walk away from in 90 seconds. That's
30 seconds flat.
Or 30 seconds flat. Yeah. Last episode, we talked about, people that you wanted to get away with at the end. At the end of that film, all I want is for De Niro's character to ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
That's all I want. all I want is that to happen.
Yeah.
I want him to not go and get Waingro because it's not fucking worth it. It's not worth it. You could finally be happy
When he makes
and
that
have a
indication
life.
on the freeway.
He just
to like-
pulls across
yeah.
the road. Oh man, you're just like fucking no. Oh, so
I'm
good.
still Team Pacino. I'm glad you got him.
Really?
Yeah. But like to be fair,
I
they're
love
both
Pacino,
lost.
and it's
They're
one of
both
those
lost.
ones. Like I feel like in films like that where I feel for the bad guy, it's because I hate the good guy because he's a bit of a too much of a goody two shoes or something like that. Whereas Pacino's character is just so wild,
Dude,
you know?
if the film had ended with Neil winning and Pacino dying, I wouldn't have enjoyed the film. I would have had a completely different feeling about it.
So what happens? So he kills Waingro.
Yeah. He's
And
walking back. He's set
walking
off the
back.
fire alarm in the hotel. So there's all these police and like firemen, and he's walking towards the car. And Vincent has arrived at the hotel.
Yeah, it's kind of like one step ahead of him. He finds him at the hotel.
And he sees the car. Vincent sees the car sitting in the alleyway. And while everybody's running, he sees this woman sitting in a car, and he kind of goes, I don't think he knows her. I don't think he knows who she is.
He just has a hunch.
Maybe
I
he
think.
recognizes the car, but he
Yeah.
just has a hunch, and he looks at her and he goes, what's that about? And starts walking towards her. And that's when Neil walks out dressed as a security guard.
Yeah.
And he sees him. And as you say, Simon, there's that look between the two of them. And he just runs. He's gone into the crowd. And that's when they run. Then this mad scene. It turns
Yeah, they
into
managed
where
to run into
run across an
airport.
airfield.
Airport run, which is
and having like a
bizarre.
shootout across. Like
Yes.
while Pacino's running behind a plane and stuff like that, which I'm almost certain you just get blown over. Like walking behind a jumbo jet, you get blown into next week.
I am certain that they chose that location purely because they could access it or whatever. Like I thought that was the only location available. I don't think there's any logical like meaning behind choosing an airport runway for it.
It
but
works so well.
It works. It
and
works.
because
It's
it's
very
set up
the way they get
sound and
into
the
it
light,
is
yeah.
quite plausible. Like I know now you'd think, oh, how high security airports are, but then it probably quite easy to get.
And you
into.
think about it as well, how like the lights and the movement of the shadows of the planes really
Right.
plays into that final scene where the two of them are kind of moving around these like, I don't know if they're like electricity, like these like they're like
Pallets
huts
or
or like something like
yeah.
that, and they're moving around. And Vincent's kind of out in the open, and Neil,
Aren't they baggage things that they, those baggage cars drag around? Isn't it those?
There's at
Yeah.
one point they're running through those, but when you actually they go through those, and then there's these kind of like they're like almost like little brick hut things, or kind of what they look like. You don't know, they'd be like electricity boxes
Transformer
inside
or
them. Yeah,
something.
transformers inside them, and Neil's hiding behind one, and he's about to pop out and shoot him, and then I think it's either a plane goes over, and you get this pulling shadow across, and it brings Neil's shadow out from behind, and that's when you get a nice slow-mo of Pacino going, what? Bang, bang, bang.
And he's shooting blind, isn't he? He's just using the shadow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he gets him to the test.
Yeah.
Kind of like wounds him very badly. And then, Neil falls to the ground and Vincent approaches
he's sitting on
him.
something.
And the piano in the background is like starting to loop. That
Yeah.
piano loop is
Yeah.
amazing.
Then he holds his hand, which is amazing.
Yeah.
it's such a like
So-
that's
so-
the final kind of piece of respect between. Like it's almost like Pacino's going, right, okay, well, like almost like a race well run. He's almost shaking his hands as to be like, listen, we both knew it was going to be one of us in the end, but fucking hell, it was a good run. He's almost remorseful. I think in like, but I wonder if Pacino thinks in another life they'd have probably been friends. Like it could have been one on the other side. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah, of course.
Like it could very
Yeah.
easily have been the tables that turned, or they could have been both on the same side, or they just so happened that they came up against one another, like the perfect match.
And I think the hand holding comes right after Neil says to Vince, I told you I wasn't going back. And Vince goes, yeah. As in like, we are aligned, we're in agreement, let's do this, it's over. It's not like I won, you lost sort of thing. It's more like this is life and this is what we signed up for, really.
Yeah, to the death.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Moby song in the end is just like so fitting. It's just like incredible because I love how it cuts to black, like from just that one shot. Incredible, like final shot. Like I want it as a painting, to be honest.
It's definitely
It's
one
so
of
good.
those endings where you sit in silence for a moment and you can't
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah,
The first
I
time you watch
genuinely
it.
sat there being like, oh, okay. You kind of feel like you've been through an ordeal. Like
Yeah.
you've been like that especially that last like 2 or 3 minutes when they're kind of when the cat and mouse chasing one another out. You're like holding my breath and stuff, being like, oh god, if I breathe, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
He's gonna shoot him.
My breathing can directly affect the outcome of this film.
Directly affect the outcome of this film that's 28 years old.
Is it really?
Yeah, it
That's so
95, yeah, 28 years old.
Okay, question number one, obvious question for the final show. Why does Neil hold Vincent's hand? Like, why does he make that?
I think it's
bloke.
I think it's like a handshake. It's like a well done. Listen,
Well,
I think it's almost like you almost want to be like, you got me. You got me. That was it. I think I do wonder what's going through Neil's head at that point as well, because it's like, is he happy in that death? You know, he's gotten Waingro, but at the expense of himself and his life. And, you know, there's so many there's actually a lot of loose ends for Neil, really.
Yeah.
The woman he leaves behind, Val Kilmer's character, Val Kilmer's wife and his son,
Right.
John Voight's character. There's so many loose ends for him. Whereas
Chris's wife is clever.
yes, yeah, the
Very,
scene
very
where
clever.
she kind of moves him along, yeah.
And the police aren't properly concentrating, so they miss
Yeah.
it. And also the way when Chris drives away, he still has to get through a roadblock, and he manages to do it even though he's been shot. and
Yeah,
stuff.
because he's kind of cut his hair and he's yeah.
I saw it. You know what? When I saw it on the big screen, when I didn't.
Is this have you seen this before?
Yeah,
Okay.
once again. But I actually was on the very first time I was in the cinema, not when it came out because I was 5, but it was like a special screening, like a 10-year anniversary or something like that.
I'd love to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a treat. But I remember when I watched it, and I remember that final scene being like, oh, isn't this what people do when they play against each other and it's the end of the game and they just like give each other a handshake or like a hug at the end? As in, like, you know, when you play with tennis with each other, it's like at the end of the game, if you're a good player and if you're not like an asshole, you just give each other like a pat on the back or like a handshake.
Pat
and
on
I
the
almost,
bum. There you go.
yeah, exactly. So I almost saw it as, you know, Neil saying, I'm defeated and I'm gonna. You play fair and square, and I take it with dignity.
I completely agree.
It was a good game.
I think
What
it's
you
this
said.
this incredible battle that's taken place over days and days and days, and like
It's like when two tennis players at Wimbledon have to shake hands at the end of a mega battle.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
After
a
hating
you know
each
they
other.
hate each other.
Yeah, it's a 5-set decider on centre court
Yeah.
at like 11 p.m. and it's finally done. And it's like,
Sometimes when there's a
fuck.
mega tantrum, one of them walks away and just does his bag and won't do it.
But I think it's great because it's so many different points during the movie. That, like the power switches between Vincent and Neil, and like, you know,
For a lot of the
scene-
time, Vincent's not looking good, is he? He just looks overworked. He's tired. They haven't got any leads. There's that big mistake where one of the officers bangs his gun on the container that they're
container,
in.
and he just
Natalie
he just sees it.
Portman's suicide attempt.
Yeah.
His stepdaughters.
Yeah, he's not having a great time.
Whenever
for a lot
he
of it.
feels like he's on top and he's got a lead or something, that's when kind of Neil, because there's that scene as well where they meet in the middle of all the shipping containers. They follow them there, and they're all like, "Why the fuck? Like, what do we see? What are we seeing here?" And then Vincent finally realizes we're not seeing anything; they're seeing us. And it was Neil. Like, that's a
great.
fucking great scene, and he's on top of the crane with the camera. That's like the power changes so much, and it's been such a battle between the two of them that it's like
Do you ever get
a sigh of relief for them.
Do you ever get Columbo vibes from Neil? From Vincent?
Yeah,
You know, he's always
even
got like
the voice.
messy jacket. Like
Yeah.
his office is all messy at work.
Yeah,
like,
100%
yeah.
Columbo vibes.
I'm gonna say it because I texted this to you, Ben, when we were chatting about Heat a couple of weeks back. He gives me Jared Leto House of
Yes.
Gucci vibe sometimes.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I remember texting you. He has the Jared Leto performance.
He does.
But
But you
it's
know what?
over the top. You enjoy it, but it's over the top.
He's really over the top, but I think it's deserved at points because I think people like Jared Leto have done over the top performances when it's not necessarily warranted. Whereas Vincent in that film you kind of believe it because the guy's life is on such a fucking knife edge the whole time. His marriage is pretty much ending. He's having all these issues with his stepdaughter who inevitably tries to kill herself. And then all the while he's dealing with let's not forget, a serial killer who's on the loose. Like Waingro, they say in that scene after he kills the prostitute that this is like the third or fourth person he's killed and they're trying to figure out who it is. And then he also has this bank robber who is basically a mirror image of him just on the other side of the line. Like, it's kind of believable that this guy every now and again is just like he just kind of snapped, like the ass scene.
She's got a great ass
with Hank Azaria, where he just like snaps and just kind of starts screaming and shouting. It's deserved, I would say.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, and I think I would like to go back to Pacino's filmography from that era because I'm thinking of Scent of a Woman.
Yeah.
It's also like
That was exactly what I was thinking of.
Incredibly over that. He just shouting, and I'm like, dude, you're blind. Your hearing is fine.
Oh God.
So I don't know if because he wasn't like that in the
That's
Godfather.
a good hangover film.
That's a great hangover film.
I hate the name of it.
Yeah.
Dreadful name for a film. It's so bad.
It's a horrible name.
It's awful. For what it is, a film about a blind lawyer. It's like,
Dude, the worst thing about this film is that actually Pacino got his first Oscar, and I'm like, of all films you've been in.
That was in the era of Oscars where you had to do like a disability, and they're like, oh yeah, you did a stutter or a little limp or whatever.
Yeah, they got My Left Foot, Daniel Day-Lewis. My Left Foot. Yeah.
That's so funny. I mean, yeah. So I don't know.
Do
I
a
enjoyed
disability, instant Oscar.
I mean, one other thing that I wanted to get your take on was so we talked about the kind of like deliberate slow pacing of the final sequence up until that, ultimate climax where Neil gets shot. Because it was very interesting for me not having watched it in a very long time, I almost didn't remember what was going to happen. And I remember because of that pacing that it took a while, like they were kind of, Vince was chasing Neil for a long time. That kind of affected how emotionally invested I was in the outcome. As in, I was like, I'm enjoying this so much that I want this to end. Can they just keep chasing each other forever?
How would you feel? How would you feel if it had ended where he goes to they go to shoot one another, and it just pulls the trigger and then cuts to black, cuts to black soprano style. We don't know who lives, we don't know who dies. We make it up in our own mind.
The rhythm before that.
That's such a Nolan ending.
I know, that's exactly what I thought. That was like, if I was Nolan, he'd spin the disc and neither of them would die. But who knows?
But you've just
their bullets collide in midair. Whoa!
The viewers just had like the satisfaction of Waingro getting blown away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then, out of that scene, they've got to then build the tension straight back up into like, okay, we've had a treat. Waingro's been killed, and now we need to go find out what happens here.
Ramps back up. Yeah.
And it's like that's what that film does really well. It like just builds up tension, releases it, builds, release, build, release, like all the way through, but in different ways.
Because that's it. There's as I say, there's so many bits in the film where I found myself almost holding my breath, just being like the bank robbery scene's the same. Like as soon as they walk into that bank to the end of that shootout on the highway, which is probably like 15, like it's a really long set piece from the start to finish, whole time just like edge of my seat, like, and that's hard to do. Like that's really difficult to do. Like action movies are constantly striving to do that. And it's really difficult. Whereas, like, there's so many moments in Heat where I'm just like...
That shootout on the road outside the bank in LA, that's the moment where I really was wondering if I could still root for Neil even slightly. Because they shoot so many policemen.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, bank robbing isn't cool. Like, loads of, like, people with families have just been killed like they're nothing.
Do you know what? I generally, watching it, thought how exhilarating that must have been to film that. To be an actor in that position, going, like... to try and film that scene, walking up the street, firing the gun, so much noise, so much to go on. For someone like De Niro, whose character has to be cool, calm the whole time, to be able to do that is, like, obviously his performance in the film is amazing anyway, but to have that calmness through all the chaos of all that other shit and still be the guy that everybody looks to, okay, this is what Neil's doing, we know where to go, he knows what to do, is insane.
Yeah.
So good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great direction.
Great direction, great performances, great music.
And
stunning facial hair.
That's true.
So good.
When I rewatched the film, I realized that Scorsese probably was inspired by Heat to make The Departed.
Yeah.
Like, as in the pacing, the idea of like...
That's a really good comparison.
Like futility, like inevitable, like even the ending, which is very straightforward in the end. What's his face? Matt Damon gets shot by Mark Wahlberg. It's like, this is what was always supposed to happen, you know? When I think it's exactly what's the morale of like
it's
Heat.
Inevitable in a way.
Yeah, which is like law wins over crime, but at what cost? You know, I think that's the questions. Like, it's not black and white, and there are no winners or losers.
Because the body count in the film is huge. Like, so many people get killed in that movie.
Exactly.
Get killed or like assaulted or like... Because don't forget, then he also goes and kills the banker who sent Waingro after them before that. So that's the first person Neil goes after.
Oh, yeah, and his mega posh.
Yeah.
house. Yeah.
And Neil's so ruthless about that stuff. He just
Yeah.
throws the things to the window, asks him where he is. And like normally in movies like that, you get a bit of like there'll be a bit of dialogue, or they get really emotional or something like that. And all he does is ask him where he is and then shoots him. And then even with Waingro, he's just like, look at me, bang, and that's it, and that's done.
That's
There's
he's a
no
nutter.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why.
He deserved that.
yeah,
to be fair.
yeah,
Cool. I think we saw the ending again.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me once again. Thank you for all your great answers. Here's to never walking out of a film again. Or
Yeah.
maybe do.
I wouldn't
I
have
don't
walked
know.
out of Heat, I tell you that. If I see it in the
Oh,
cinema.
no.
Stay until the end of the credits because I wouldn't know
Were
what
you,
to
were
do.
you wishing there was a post-credit sequence?
Oh, wishful thinking.
Where like Neil's hand comes out of a grave and then it turns into an Evil Dead movie.
Post-credit
wait.
scene. Yeah.
Or it's like it's like the end of Point Break, Val Kilmer surfing, and
So
they just recreate the end of Point Break, Val Kilmer surfing,
Yeah.
and was it Vince? Vince comes to find him on the beach.
that's so funny. HCU, Heat Cinematic Universe.
That's what we need to do. We need to do Point Break. Fuck, what a movie!
I'll be up for that.
We should.
Another bank robbery movie.
I would love that. I mean,
it's not the next episode, but we'll do it.
it's happening. I mean, it's going to be like a summer, summer episode.
Summer blockbuster episodes. Come on.
Perfect. Cool. As always, if you listen this far, take a second to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And if you're as big of a fan as Michael Mann as we are, share this episode on your stories and the movie group chat. Come back in 2 weeks for the final scene of Spirited Away, our first animation, right? And anime at the same time.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
that's exciting. Until next time, stay cool. Goodbye.
Oh, look, a message from our sponsor.
Did you like it? Did you like that?
Did I like it? I loved it.
I had no idea you could milk a cat.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.